It's great to have everybody here, and I want to start by thanking all the folks who helped get this set up. We have lots of volunteers. Hy-Vee's doing the catering. The P's have donated the Piedmontese beef. So we got lots of great sponsors who make this happen. Can we give them a big round of applause? I also want to thank the Arbor Day Foundation for taking care of Arbor Lodge. You know, we've had this event here over the last several years, and they continue to make improvements, renovating and restoring the home. And a little factoid you may not know is that this is the 50th anniversary year for the foundation, and the 150th anniversary of Arbor Day, where J. Sterling Morton had over 1 million trees planted on that first Arbor Day. Wow. Pretty appropriate for today, and it's a beautiful day in agriculture, right? And that's what this event is about, right? Celebrating agriculture here in Nebraska. You know, agriculture is our largest industry. It makes up about 20% of our state's economy. 1 in 4 jobs is tied to agriculture. And guess what, folks? We're really good at agriculture here in the state. We are the #1 state for cash receipts per capita in agriculture, as well as being the #1 state for commercial cattle slaughter. We are #2 for ethanol, #2 for all cattle on feed, cattle on calves, beef exports, red meat production. We're #3 for corn, and then just in that category of total receipts, we're the 3rd biggest state for overall agricultural receipts. We're 4th in soybeans, 5th in sugar beets, 6th in all hogs and pigs. And I think that means bacon too then. So this is what we do here in the state. And that's what we focus on, is to continue to grow agriculture here, which really is the foundation of our economy. Now, the other thing we've done in the state over the last few years is trying to bring some common sense on how to manage this pandemic. You know, we took a more balanced approach, in contrast to what the Democrats and Joe Biden wanted. They want to lock us down. They want to force us to wear masks, force us to take vaccines. And we can see the policies and how they implicate and do that sort of thing, right? We know, for example, the military, in fact, there's just an article today in the World Herald that the National Guard nationally is not meeting its goals for recruitment. I'll tell you here in Nebraska, we're actually doing pretty good. But nationally, that's not the case. It's certainly not the case for the military. It's weakening our nation, their policies. If you look at the states that were run by Democrats versus Republicans, last year, Republican-led states had kids in classrooms nearly twice as many days as those blue states. Those blue states are a lot of great educators working to make that happen. You can also look at unemployment rates. Here in Nebraska, we've got the 4th lowest. And you won't be surprised to know that generally, if you look at the top 10 states for the lowest unemployment rate, 8 of them are Republican-led states, because we took that balanced approach to keep people in work. We kept kids in schools, kept people in work. The other important thing that did for us, it allowed us to have a strong economy. I mentioned that we got the lowest unemployment rate. We just wrapped up our fiscal year in June with our revenues running 30% ahead of forecast. That's a big deal. Yeah, somebody started clapping. You can clap for that. That's good. But we also kept the growth of government down to just 2.8% over 8 years. And by contrast that to the 6.5% it was growing before I took over. We kept our expenses low. Our economy's doing well, so our revenues are growing. Guess what we've been able to do? We've been able to do major tax relief. Now, go ahead and clap. Let's do it. So, Julie talked about some of the state senators around here. Make sure when you see your state senator, thank them. Because we did some big things in this last legislative session. It was only a 60-day session. We passed a tax bill that was a tax relief bill that was 12 times bigger than any tax relief bill passed in any previous administration. When? What we did in 2020. And so if you look at how these tax relief bills are going to phase in, by 2027, we'll deliver $12.6 billion in tax relief. $10 billion of that will come in property tax relief. So, I want to make sure that everybody knows that one of the ways you collect on this tax relief is on your Nebraska state income tax form. It's a rebate, actually, from the state, essentially what it is. First year we passed this bill with 6%. Last year was 25%. This year, folks, it's going up to 30%. You're going to pay back 30% on your property taxes for whatever you paid for your K-12 schools and your community colleges. That's significant. If you have a house in Lincoln worth $250,000, which is kind of the average, that will mean $1,137, about 23% of your overall property tax bill. We, the state, are going to be paying for it. And while we're doing tax relief, we've been able to make major investments in public safety and law enforcement, most I can ever remember. We're making major investments in our water infrastructure. We're making major infrastructure investments all across this state to be able to make sure we continue to grow and have a good life here in Nebraska. And when you think about all these things, the tagline is conservative leadership matters. When people have conservative leadership, they prosper because government stays out of the way. When they don't have conservative leadership, like we see in D.C. right now from the White House, Joe Biden's America, we see people suffering. You know, Congressman Bacon, Congressman Smith, Senator Fisher all talked about how the Biden administration's policies have driven up energy costs by declaring war on our own energy resources. When Biden took over, gas was at $2.49. Yesterday, it's at $3.66, up over a buck. Folks, that impacts people's families. When I was talking to some folks late last summer, they were telling me they had to cancel vacation plans, stop driving their cars so much, try and find ways to economize when they go to the grocery store because inflation was so high. This impacts people's lives. This is the impact of the bad policies come out of the Biden administration. We mentioned the border. Our Customs and Border Patrol are not being supported at all. In fact, I was just down there thanking our National Guard soldiers down there. Let me tell you, the Border Patrol is not being supported. 2 million people that we know of, Customs and Border Patrol intercepted last year, and it's more this year. We're seeing records amount. And folks, hundreds of thousands of them are being released into our country this year, last year, the year before. The Biden administration has abdicated the responsibility. Congressman Bacon talked about, again, the drugs coming across the border. We see it here in Nebraska. We've taken twice to 3 times as much fentanyl off the roads as we did in 2020. That costs lives. Karen Griffin, a young mom, 22 years old. She had 2 kids. She got one of those fake counterfeit pills laced with fentanyl, and she died of an overdose. That's what happens when you don't protect our southern border. It is terrible what this administration is doing. And we see it with the bills they're passing, the runaway spending, all of that. And their solution, tax you more and hire 87,000 IRS agents to collect it. That's their solution. And that is why it is so important that we get out and vote this fall. We must retake the House of Representatives. And we must retake the U.S. Senate. And in 2 years, we must replace Joe Biden with a conservative Republican. All over again, right? A weak president in the White House, undermining our position overseas, driving up energy costs, high inflation. But remember, what came out of that? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the greatest president we had in the 20th century. So folks, we need to be optimistic. We're not going to be angry. We're going to fight our causes. We're going to be happy warriors as we go out and convince our friends, families, and neighbors that they need to get out. We've got the message that's going to help them. The Democrats have become the party of the elite. We're the party of the family. So we need to make sure that all those families across the state are turned out and voted. I want each and every one of you here today to make this commitment to get out in 30 days and vote 10 times. Not the Chicago way 10 times. I want you all to make the commitment to vote and get 900 people to vote. Talk to your friends, families, and neighbors. Tell them how important it is. Senator Salama talked about how important it was for the races for like legislature, for your city council, county commissioners, school board. These are all important offices. We need conservative Republicans there to be able to make sure the bad policies that we see in D.C. don't come here. And we know they're trying. Look at the State Board of Education. Deb Neary and her activist friends tried to push health standards that included sex ed that was completely inappropriate. Teaching our kids just horrible things. Gender ideology being a part of it. It can happen here, folks, if we don't get involved. So please, help us over these next 30 days. Get involved in the race. It's not too late. Find a candidate you like. You can help that person in this home stretch. And now, we're going to bring up our great guest that we've got here from South Carolina. Our first senator, Tim Scott, has been crisscrossing the country, helping to make sure that we retake the U.S. Senate. And he has got a fantastic story. He grew up in North Charleston. It's a poverty-stricken neighborhood. His mom was a nursing assistant that was trying to raise her two boys, working 16 hours a day. Some, in that circumstance, might have gotten downhearted. But not Tim Scott. His mom wouldn't let him. She taught him the value of hard work. And Tim Scott saw the opportunity this country offers to everybody. And he worked hard for it. Went into business. Was very successful. And then felt called to create those opportunities for others. So he became a U.S. Senator. And as a U.S. Senator, got language put in the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to create opportunity zones. To create opportunity in those neighborhoods where we know people need help. But not the kind of help that the Democrat want to give, not the handout, but the investment. The investment that would create jobs. Because Tim saw the American dream is alive and well if you give people that opportunity. They will create wealth, they'll get jobs, they'll be able to take care of their families. And that is what the American dream is about. And this man embodies the American dream. Please help me give a warm Nebraska welcome to the South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
Taking of an offering today. Can somebody say amen? Amen. Hallelujah. Let me just do a quick survey to make sure I know who I'm talking to. How many of y'all believe that America is the solution and not the problem? The governor did a good job of telling a part of my story, and I really appreciate that. He talks about how positive my mother was. He didn't know my mama. My mama's favorite scripture was, boy, I brought you in this world, I can take you out. I'm not quite sure where that is in the Bible, but she said it one time, Senator Fisher, she said it 1,000 times. She had two boys. One was perfect. He studied hard. He paid attention in class. He listened to his teachers. He never got in trouble. And then she had me. I was the other kind of kid. Anybody have two kids that are very different? Yeah. My brother graduated cum laude. Yeah. I graduated thank you laude. And the reason why I graduated thank you laude is that when I was a kid, I lost my way. I didn't fully appreciate the significant blessing that I received of American citizenship. I didn't know when I was a freshman in high school that anybody from anywhere at any time could succeed beyond their wildest imagination. I thought my lot in life was designed by my single-parent household, being mired in poverty. I did not realize that that was just a lie. We're not judged on where we start. We're judged on how far we go. But I didn't know that at that time. And so as a freshman, I went to failing out. I failed 4 subjects my freshman year. I think I might be the only U.S. senator to ever fail civics. That tells me God has a sense of humor. Now, Lindsey and I will agree, and Deb will confirm, that after my 9 years in the Senate, I am not the only one failing civics in the U.S. Congress. I also failed Spanish and English. Now, when you fail Spanish and English, no one calls you bilingual. They all call you biignorant, because you can't speak in any language. And that's where I found my unhappy self. But I did have those 2 amazing blessings. One was that mama who prayed for me. She would always tell me, if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you're among the stars. If I heard that one time, I heard it 1,000 times. My mom is my true American hero, because she also taught me the dignity of work. She says that if you can, you should, and if you don't, you won't have what you need, and that's your fault. My mother was the greatest encourager I've ever met in my entire life, except one Thursday night, my freshman year, when she came home and looked at my report card. She looked at me. She shook her head. And then she took me outside and said, son, pick a tree. Mom, pick a tree. She said, take a branch down. She said, take the leaves off that branch. I started getting a clue. And then she introduced me to a new form of encouragement. She taught me that a switch is a southern apparatus of encouragement. And she applied it from right about him all the way down. And I was thoroughly encouraged. I did not fail another subject for the rest of my academic life. One time with the switch was enough for me to figure out you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way you're supposed to do it, and then you just shut up and say, yes, ma'am. I was a quick study after failing out. My second blessing was a major blessing. It was a Christian man who ran a Chick-fil-A, a guy named John Moniz, that taught me the concept that your poverty doesn't define you. That what defines you starts on the inside. And if you will allow it to germinate, it works its way to the outside. And then you become whatever you want to be if, it was a big if though, if you take responsibility for yourself. He said, don't blame your dad because he's not around. Don't blame your mom because she's working 16 hours a day. He said, blame yourself. Because if you are the problem, the promise is within you. If the obstacles you see start here, then the opportunities start here too. I am so thankful that John Moniz came into my life when I was only 15 years old. Unfortunately for me, when I was 19 years old, he was 37, he had a massive heart attack, and he was gone. But he taught me the most important lessons about America as a Christian conservative who never talked about Republicans or Democrats. He talked about right and wrong. He talked about common sense, going the extra mile. He taught me that whatever you sow, you reap. But you only reap it after you sow it, and you always reap more than you sow. So if you sow negativity and corrosion, you're going to reap a harvest. Crap. Those 2 individuals made me a conservative. And I look back at our country today, and I'm so proud of how far we've come. But I look at the White House and wonder why it feels like the Carter years again. Why is inflation raging out of control? Why have we had 6 months of inflation over 8%? 17 months where inflation has rose faster than our incomes. And so the average family, like the one I grew up in, feels desperate and frustrated and irritated at an administration that has no clue what it means to meet their bills by what they do. They're so used to having government jobs, and no offense to government jobs, but in the real world, you don't get paid unless you show up. That's not this administration. See, they say they always want to know what causes inflation. Well, when the federal government spends nearly $5 trillion flooding cash to an economy that's already recovered, it catches it on fire. And the result of that fire is inflation that we haven't seen in 40 years or since the Carter administration. When you start blaming the police for the crime, you've lost your mind. We have officers of the law all around us. Let us please stand and give them. When my house was broken into, the police showed up.
Let me know you are.
When I had a terrible car accident, the police showed up.
They were clapping for
When
the
there are
police.
challenges and problems, it's the police running in, not running out. We have too many folks in the Progressive Party, I would say Democrats, but they're all progressive this way, who want to blame the police and then defund the police. We want to refund the police, give them the resources they need, the equipment they need, so that they can continue to do the job we need done.
That's right.
But not that blaming is enough or defunding is enough, but they go one step further. They have the new district attorneys all across America, letting the criminals go free. It's an embarrassment. It's un-American. And we can stop it by winning the majorities and firing Nancy Pelosi. We start by making sure that not only is Nebraska ruby red, I did say I failed English, by the way, ruby red, but also let's make sure that the Senate is as red as it can be, and let's fire Chuck Schumer. And introduce Lindsey Graham. And when I look at crime, when I look at the borders, the last July President Trump was in office until this previous July, there's been a 325% increase in illegal border crossings in our nation. 2.5 million illegal immigrants crossing our borders, completely preventable. We've done it before. We should do it again. And it requires us to build a wall on our southern border because we need to be responsible for who comes in our country. We've got 108,000 drug overdoses. 108,000 plus drug overdoses in America. Fentanyl walking across our southern border. We've got 50 people on our terrorist watch list walk across our porous southern border. So if illegal immigration is not enough, think of the drug issues and the national security that is our southern border. Final issue, student loans. Let us pray. Lord. I'm the first college graduate in my family. And I thank God that I had a chance to go to college. But the most irresponsible thing for me to do is to take my college debt and place it on the shoulders of my hard-working mama, who never had a chance to go to college. Why would a man call that? Households that make up to $250,000 can transfer. There's no such thing as debt cancellation. There's debt transfer. You can't cancel student loan debt. You can transfer it from households making $250,000 a year down to my mama, who makes $20 an hour. Irresponsible, unethical, and immoral. We can stop this by taking back the majority. We can stop crime. We can stop terrible withdrawals from Afghanistan. We can stop spending, and we can stop the transfer of student loan debt. All we have to do is win elections. And we get back to the good old days. Y'all remember the good old days? Yeah. From 2016 to 2020, when we were in charge? Woo! I remember way back good old days. I'm talking about the good old days. When we created 7 million jobs, when we had unemployment at 3.5%, inflation under 2%, when we literally saw the world stand up and respect America, when we saw the days through President Trump that we thought, or at least they thought, maybe he's crazy enough just to do it. The good old days. We need that kind of tough but fair, consistent leadership for America. I'll end with this. Ephesians 3:20 says that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or imagine. It is time for us as Americans to stand on our foundation of faith, to reclaim our country, and to usher in another American century. I believe it starts now. I believe it starts here. Best news is I'm done. Better news is you get to hear from the senior senator of South Carolina. Now this man is unbelievable. You know the woman who wants to kill terrorists? Well, there's a dude who likes to kill terrorists too. His name is Lindsey Graham. If you want someone who appreciates the value of what it means to be an American, someone who has a tough beginning with a wonderful end, you want to hear from Lindsey Graham. And you want to hear from the funniest, most articulate, intelligent speaker we have besides Pete Ricketts and Don Bacon and Lindsey Graham!
Scott, I appreciate that, but I had this little thing for introducers for both of you, so I'm sorry, let me not go with you. Well, I don't know if I'm going to do better, but I did memorize this, so I probably should say it. So anyway, so next we got Senator Lindsey Graham, and a little bit about Senator Graham. Service has been a part of his nature for his entire life. He was in active duty Air Force for 6.5 years. Air Force folks there, we got the Air Force people. And in the reserves for many years more. In fact, he just retired as a colonel in 2015 after 33 years in the Air Force. Thank you very much for your service. He ran for the state legislature in 1992. And then went to Washington, D.C. in 1994. The people of South Carolina have elected him 4 times to fight for them. And we've heard about all the different issues we've got going on. Senator Graham has been on the front line of cutting taxes that burden our families, getting rid of regulations to kill jobs and trying to control spending in a place that just wants to spend money. So we've got a great warrior up here who has been helping our country for a long, long time, and as was previously mentioned, has been a huge supporter of our armed forces. Please help me give another great Nebraska welcome to Senator Lindsey Graham.
I'll be mindful of that. How about a round of applause for our governor? Yeah. And his family. Chris, you showed us what it's like to be a good steward with money, keep focused, cut taxes in a responsible way. And I want to say this to the people of Nebraska. Thank you for being a voice for the unborn. The Republican Party doesn't speak for the unborn. I don't think anybody else will. And we're going to speak for the market. We're going to fight for them, and we're going to advocate for them. So what can you say about Tim? South Carolina is lucky to have him as our senator. Uh-oh, sorry about that. Take a break. Be right back. All right, Governor. Hope nobody's filming this. I'll get blamed for. Somebody gave me an award, and I said, I don't think I deserve the award, but I don't deserve all the crap I get either, so I'll take the award. But the big difference between me and Tim, you'll see here in a minute, there's a lot of differences. I do ask for an offering. LindseyGraham.com. It's in the Bible somewhere. So, speaking of Trump, he called me one night, which he does, and I enjoy it. How about a round of applause for our former president? He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm watching TV. He says, give me some Bible verses. Why? He said, I'm about to go talk to a bunch of preachers. And you know what I told him? Call Tim. That's a better, and I said, don't do the thou shalt nots. That may not go well. So, Tim is what you see in private is what you see in person. I just want to take a little minute to talk about my friend Tim Scott. Deb and I, we had these votes where we vote all night on crazy stuff. Some of it makes sense. But like 3 in the morning, everybody's kind of joining the marijuana now party. Everybody's kind of wigged out. And Tim is sitting over in the corner with earphones on, looking at the laptop. And I went over and said, what's going on? I'm watching volleyball in Guam, 3 in the morning. He says, I'm doing my Bible study. Now what you see is what you get with this man. And don't you think he has a very bright future? Yeah. Your mama did good. So Tim's story starts at Chick-fil-A. Mine starts in a liquor store. Tim's a very religious man. My dad owned a bar. We met the same people, to be honest with you. I met him on Saturday and he met him on Sunday. But I'm the first in my family to go to college too. Best 8 years of my life. I love it. But my mom and dad owned a restaurant, a pool room, and a liquor store. And we lived in the back. Neither one of them finished high school. Anybody in here own your own business? What did I learn? You can't get sick. Because if you don't open up, you don't get paid. We never took a vacation until I was in high school because who are you going to get to run the store that won't steal you blind? That's what you learn when you grow up in the back of a restaurant, liquor store, and a pool room. I ran the pool room. You learn a lot of things in that environment. You learn that all of us are one step away from something bad happening to you, right? I've seen people come in happy and drink too much and leave sad. I've seen it the other way around too. So I'm not a judgmental guy, but I do believe that God has a purpose for all of us, right? Yeah. That I'm standing here for a reason, and Tim's here for a reason, and the governor's here for a reason. That all of us who believe that have a chance to change our country. So when I was 21, I went to University of South Carolina, so I understand what not playing football is all like. You know, we've had about a 40-year drought here. But everything was going good. My mom got diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. She was 52. My dad was 67. We always thought he would go first, she'd be last, right? Within 6 months, she was gone. 15 months later, my dad passed away. I'm 22, and my sister's 13. What have I learned? You never know, right? Just be grateful for what you got. Don't take anything or anybody for granted. And there are a lot of self-made people in America. They tell you that all the time. I am not one of them. If it weren't for my family, my friends, and my faith, I would not be standing here today. So what have I learned? I've learned that the only way you can pay back is do the best you can while you can, and just fight for what you believe with a smile on your face. So a little bit about the election. Everybody's talked about why we should win. I'm going to tell you what will happen if we lose. The negative side of South Carolina. If somehow we let this slip away, God help us all. You know why Puerto Rico and D.C. are not a state? It's because we had enough votes in the Senate to stop it. There may be a Senate opening here soon in Nebraska. I wish Ben well in Florida. He's been a good friend. But I think the governor ought to consider maybe moving to Washington for a few years. The Ricketts family, you're the American dream too. I didn't buy his dad's book, but I don't buy anybody's book. Don't take it personal. But he told me his story, his father's story, and his family's story, and that's a story that can only happen in America. So Pete, I hope you'll think about, sit down with your family and pray on it. And if that opportunity comes, maybe you can take the competency and the caring and the conservatism you've demonstrated here in Nebraska and bring it to help us in Washington. Thank you. So, if we lose this election, if we don't take back the House, it would be one of the biggest things we'll regret for the rest of our lives. There's no reason we shouldn't win, but you never know in this business, right? So General Bacon, I made Colonel. You know how I made Colonel? I got in the Senate and I promoted myself. You made General by knowing what the hell you're doing. I want to thank you and your family for running in a very competitive district. I've got a suggestion for folks in Nebraska here. You got some R plus 33 seats, right? Share some with General Bacon. Spread it around a little bit. But I appreciate your commitment to our country. If they did win this election and they kept control of the Senate and somehow kept control of the House, I fear that they will pack the Supreme Court. Does that make sense to you? I fear they'll make D.C. and Puerto Rico states to give them 4 more votes. I fear that they will create a national election board to do away with state elections and implement ballot harvesting as a national policy. You know why I fear that? Because that's what they're going to do if they can. They've tried it. Everything I talked about passed the House and failed in the Senate because of Deb, me, Tim, and the rest of us. If they had 1 more vote, this country would not look the way it looks right now. So we better win this thing, right? Yeah. You better vote as if your country depended on it, because it does. Now, if we are able to take back the House and give Pelosi a subpoena, not fire her. Give her a subpoena and find out what the hell they've been doing over there. But change leadership in the House and the Senate, let me tell you what that means for you. The first bill out of the House should be what? Border security. Finish the wall. Get control of chaos, right? If you come out of the House, Kevin McCarthy and our delegation here will vote for it, then the leader of the Senate will bring it up on the floor of the Senate if they're Republican and make every Democrat vote no. The next bill should be energy independence. We should open up America for drilling. I think there's maybe something dumber than asking Venezuela to drill oil, but I can't think of it right offhand. So if you think the country's in good hands, you shouldn't be allowed to drive. Or vote, because you're crazy. There's nothing good going on right now. And if you don't get that, you really are a danger to yourself and others. So, if we can take back both bodies, we may not be able to pass all these bills, but we can structure the conversation that will help us in 2024.
Yeah.
I think I got a better chance of being the Democratic nominee than Biden, but only time will tell. I don't like my chances. I've known Biden for 25 years. He's been wrong for 25 years. He used to be nice. Now he's angry and he just can't remember why he's angry. It's hard to get over being angry if you can't remember what makes you mad. Our vice president's a piece of work, right? They go to wherever a hurricane goes, but they won't go to the border. You want to see a disaster? Go to the border. Bottom line here is we're going to do well in 2022 if we just don't lose our minds here. All of us turn out and vote, give a little bit of money, make sure we get our message out, and we can shape the battlefield for 2024. I think we got a really good shot of having 52 senators this November, 35 or 40 House majority, and in 2024, we can pick up 3 more senators because Joe Manchin's on the ballot. I like Joe, but Joe's got to go. Right? And we got a tester. This is a good map for us, Pete. We could actually have 54, 55 U.S. senators in 2024. Imagine a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. We can undo a lot of the damage they've done. And I know it could be a handful, but I thought he was a hell of a president on things that I care about. I've been a mentor, and Tim said it. The Chinese ambassador came in and said, we're trying to figure out Trump. I said, take a number, get in line. If you don't think he's a little crazy, you're crazy. All the bad guys were afraid of him, Tim. I was afraid of him, and he was my friend. He rebuilt the military. He killed terrorist leaders like nobody else. He destroyed the caliphate. He was Israel's best friend. He secured our border. He cut our taxes. And it goes on and on and on. Now, I was one of the people running for president in 2016. If you don't remember that, it is not your fault. It didn't go well. It didn't last long. And there's only 2 t-shirts, and I got one of them, you know the other. But I didn't like Trump. Matter of fact, I hated his guts. And I called him every name I could think of. And here's the good news for him. Nobody was listening to anything I had to say, except him. So, yeah, you know that deal. So after he wins, he calls me over and he says, why did you say all these bad things? I said, I couldn't think of anything else to say. I said, I'm sorry to give your phone number out. I said, that's the highlight of my campaign, so when you gave my phone number out. And he said, I want you to help me. And I said, I'd be honored to help you. You kick my butt, I want you to be a good president. We go in and have lunch, and he calls H.R. McMaster over, and he says, all right, Lindsey, tell him what you think the biggest threats to our country are. And from that day until now, I've come to respect him. I played a lot of golf with him. I've got to know him. Somebody asked, what happened with you and Trump? I said, we found common ground. I've come to like him and he likes him. Which gives us a lot to talk about. So I want to end this talking about, I don't know if he's going to run or not, but I wouldn't want to run against it. So anyway, bottom line, we can win in 22, we must. We can grow our majority in 24, we can. If we elect a Republican president, we can turn all this crap around and give America her best days. Just end on how dangerous we live, the world right now. I don't want to get you depressed, but people ask me, what keeps you up at night? Think of what could change the world for the worst overnight. If Iran got a nuclear weapon, do you believe they would use it?
Yeah.
If you were in Israel, would you risk them having a nuclear weapon? Do you believe God blesses those who bless Israel? Amen. So they're on the verge of a nuclear breakout. If they get a nuclear weapon, every Arab country is going to want one of their own, aren't they, Deb?
Yep.
And when the Mideast gets nuclear weapons, start reading the last part of the Bible.
Right.
Okay? And the Israelis, if they have to do it by themselves, will stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, because that could be the end of Israel as we know it. So what's Biden's response to this? Give Iran more money. What did I learn in the liquor store, in the pool room? If somebody's threatening to cut your throat, don't buy them a knife. It's insane to negotiate with Iran under these circumstances. As their people are fighting and dying for their freedom, we're literally talking about giving them $100 billion a year. This is crazy. It makes Neville Chamberlain look like Churchill. Russia, Ukraine. If Trump were president, Putin would not have invaded. I believe that. I think the reason he did is because of Afghanistan. Now, General, you've been to Afghanistan. I met you there. Do we have any Iraq-Afghan veterans? Those of you who've served over there, it's a gut punch to see it all wasted. The people that fought with you are at risk. It's the most shameful chapter in modern American history. And it's all Joe Biden, who's been wrong about everything. I've tried to keep a good spirit in my heart, but since Afghanistan, I am determined to stop this crap.
Yeah!
Yeah!
If Russia gets eliminated in Ukraine, there goes Taiwan. And if we can stop Russia and Ukraine by helping the Ukrainian people, we might be able to turn the world around. And the reason this mess is happening is because nobody fears the United States anymore.
Right.
Nobody wants to join with us because we are not a good ally anymore. We got to change that, folks, unless you want to fight all the wars by yourself. And let me tell you about radical Islam, and that's why I love Deb so much. She has been rock solid on all things defense. She voted for the infrastructure bill like I did, so you can make a phone call in Nebraska and rural areas. She's into governing like I am. The bottom line here is Deb gets it. She understands if we don't have a strong military, you will regret it. Radical Islam is an enemy of mankind. You may be tired of fighting them, but they're not tired of fighting you. How many believe that they would kill you if they could? Well, they mean to if somebody doesn't stop them. The best way to stop them is to kill them over there before they get here.
Yeah!
And that's what happened with Afghanistan. We pulled the plug, and everybody on the bad side is on steroids, and everybody on the good side doesn't know what to do next. If we get back to Senate and the House, we're going to look into what happened and make sure it never happens again.
All right!
Yeah!
And we're going to rebuild the military whether Biden likes it or not.
Yeah!
We're on course to have the smallest Navy in the history of the country, which is insane. So we're going to give you a budget that will keep you safe. On 9/11, do you remember where you were at? Some of you are not old enough, but those of us who are, I remember where I was at. I walked across the street to the Capitol that night. I said a prayer for my country. And I promised I would do everything I can in my power to make sure this never happens again. And I worry it's about to happen again. Terrorism is on the rise in Afghanistan, and the border is completely broken. How long will it be before they walk through our border to kill a bunch of us? We need to change policy, and we need to change it now. We're on borrowed time. This election is a big deal for the future of America's national security. We can't be the president in 2024, but we can stop a lot of these policies and we can change course. Where did President Bush go on 9/11?
Right here.
Good news for you, I'm about to end. I'm about to land this plane. I want you to remember what you mean to the defense of this country. Our nation was under attack, and only God knew what was coming next. We're in a state of siege. The plane was coming for the Capitol, and the people on Flight 93 took matters in their own hands and crashed the plane to save our capital. That was the first counterattack in the war on terror. Said about what you make out here. I've eaten every piece of meat I can get my hands on. It's all good. Everything you make here, we fry in South Carolina. Y'all number one in everything. We're number one in Libertor. So I love my state. I'm proud of Nebraska Deb and all you do for our delegation. You got a great delegation. But you got to remember, the president came here not because of what you grow. Not because of your cows. He came here because the brain power of America was here at this Air Force base. This was the place they brought the President of the United States, the darkest days since the Civil War. You know why I like Nebraska?
Why?
Because you love America. God bless you.